Hi, my name is Cabell Clay. I'm the Civic Engagement Director of the American Bar Association Young Lawyers Division this year, and I'm so fortunate to be joined by a rock star young attorney, Ashley Wilson. Heather?
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a little conversation about appointments and the process. Ashley serves on the South Carolina Ethics Commission, and how did that come about?
It came about with just kind of a phone call. I was sitting at my desk, I'm in private practice, working away, and then a former employer, my old boss at the Attorney General's office in South Carolina, called me up and just said he had an opportunity for me to serve on the Ethics Commission, which is appointed by the governor at the time. He was working for the governor. So I was just, I guess, present of mind. I don't know. Hopefully I was a good prosecutor, and then he thought of me. So.
How long had you been practicing at that time?
I'd been practicing for 6 years when I kind of got the phone call. I spent 3 years with the government, and I'd been in private practice for 3 years. So
I'm guessing you said yes.
Yes, I definitely said yes. When the governor calls, you can't really say no.
Ashley, once you were asked to serve in this role, what was the process for the appointment to actually be formalized?
Sure. So the process started with an application. So I completed an application, which is the standard application you fill in South Carolina for a commission appointment. And then the next step was I went through the process of getting approved by members of the House and Senate. So first you have to get kind of screened by these smaller House and Senate subcommittees, and then you go before the bigger committees in each of those bodies and get approved by both of them individually. And then I was approved to serve on the commission. So that's where I started.
Was there anything that happened during that process that was unexpected to you or caught you off guard?
Definitely. So for me, the part that was most unexpected is that you have to basically lay out all your financial background. So I had to complete a statement of economic interest just as if I was a person that was running for office or a candidate for office. And in that, you have to lay out all your debt, all your assets, just every piece of money I ever had in life. I had to write down on a piece of paper and share with members of the legislature, which was a little unexpected, but it ended up being fine. But when I was going through the process and speaking to these different committees, it was a point of discussion that came up, and they wanted to know, why do you have so much debt? And I was like, well, I paid for myself to go to college and law school. So that is, I also own a home. So when you layer those all together, you're like, oh, this girl is, but then you realize what you got from it, So I always had to be like, hey, this is the cost to be the boss. Like, I want to pay back my college education, my law school education, but that's something that they consider in these type of appointments. So don't be surprised if they want to kind of know a lot about your background, run a credit check, criminal background check, driving record, everything. So it's just a kind of a step in the process to be a public servant, I think.
What does the South Carolina Ethics Commission do?
So the Ethics Commission in South Carolina is just the governing body that is responsible for ethics when it comes to public officials, public employees, and now with the recent change in the South Carolina Ethics Act, it now covers members of the legislature, so House and Senate members in South Carolina. And we do a combination of, we review ethics complaints from just members of the public. We also have different reporting requirements for public officials and candidates for political office, so we keep track of that. And if somebody doesn't report like they're supposed to, we will kind of send them a friendly reminder, and then we'll bring kind of open a matter against them so we can get where we need to get and get them filing the appropriate paperwork, because the whole point for the commission is just transparency to the public about where the income of our public officials comes from.
How can the community benefit from having young lawyers serve in appointments such as yours?
Well, I think one, they can get the skills and the critical thinking and analysis, skills that we have as lawyers. So that's really valuable. And I think we shouldn't discount ourselves as young lawyers, because we may not have 20 years of experience practicing in our practices, but we will always have our critical thinking and analysis skills. And it's just we're applying them to a different problem. And we learn those in college and law school. So that's one thing that young lawyers can bring to public service. And the second thing they can bring is just the perspective of a younger person. I think a lot of people think like, oh, commissions, boards, they think, oh, that's for the person kind of at the height of their career, etc. But it's really a lot of these places and these boards and commissions, just particularly in government, they're in need of kind of a young person's perspective. And I think as like a citizen of my state, of my country, that's like my way to like give back and be engaged in my community by serving in that way.
So you just touched on that was one of your ways of giving back. What are the other benefits that young lawyers can receive from serving an appointment?
Well, one thing that I think in any context of being a public service, especially in the government, is you get like a different level of visibility to a different kind of crowd of people beyond lawyers. So you get to, I think, build your personal and professional reputation by serving in other spaces outside of your profession. I also think you get an opportunity to kind of explore your voice as a young lawyer. Because I know in my workplace, I work at a big law firm, so there's, all these partners who are more senior than me that they get kind of have the final word. So I felt like on the commission, I'm the final say on some things, which is interesting, but it's a way for me to like use and build confidence in my voice. So I know that I'm smart enough to analyze an issue or problem and then vocalize what I think is the best result. Someone kind of goes with it. So I think that's another benefit that I've gained as a young lawyer on a commission.
You said that you had been, about 6 years out of practicing. Do you feel that there are steps you took along the way that kind of lined you up and made this appointment the right fit for you?
Well, I think two things I did was one, I always think as young lawyers, we should always be thinking about how we can be a good lawyer. So as a lawyer, my first goal was always to become a good lawyer, because I think once you establish yourself as a good lawyer, people know that you're smart, that you're capable of handling serious matters, that you are approachable enough so that you can handle clients and just members of the public and represent yourself well in the public. So once I kind of got over okay, I'm a lawyer, this is my professional reputation, then it became, what are some things that I can do to add that I enjoy, where I can kind of use those skills and that value to kind of add some input and contribution to my community. So it's a start of be a good lawyer. Be a good lawyer, and then you can build upon.
Be a good lawyer.
Be a good lawyer, and then you can build upon everything else, and just kind of add layers. I always give this analogy. One of my mentors, he always tells me that the base level lawyer is a muffin, right? Muffins are great. They come in all kinds of flavors. Base level good lawyer, muffin. But if you want to be a great rock star lawyer, you want to get icing. You want to be a cupcake. So you got to think about what are the things I can add to my career. What are the ways I contribute so that I can become a cupcake, have that extra layer. Because everybody, like, if you had to choose between a cupcake and a muffin, come on, cupcakes win, right? So I always think about that in my head. And so if you have the base level of being a good lawyer, you can always build by doing other things. So.
You're also really involved with the South Carolina Young Lawyers Division. Do you feel that any of your bar work helped position you for an appointment?
I think it did, particularly because how I met the person who called me about the appointment, who ended up working for the governor, is from when I worked for the government. And so I started doing work with the Young Lawyers Division when I first kind of got out of law school, and it was a pretty cool thing to do as a government lawyer. I mean, not a lot of lawyers in my office at the time were really involved with the Young Lawyers Division or the bar in general. So in our office, or at the Attorney General's office, where they have upwards to 100 lawyers, the way I stood out to the Attorney General and to the people, kind of the big bosses in my office, were because I was involved with the Young Lawyers Division. So they knew I would go out and have different activities, and they would hear about them, or they would read in the bar newsletter about like, this young lawyer did X, Y, and Z. And so I think that kind of helped me as a younger lawyer establish kind of my, I guess what they call now your brand, but my reputation in my law firm, my office when I worked for the government, because they're like, oh, we know a little bit about her. We already know she's a good lawyer, but then she does these extra things. So just kind of giving them the indication that I was kind of civic minded. Mm-hmm. And then, I leave there, and then 3 years later, they're like, hey, we remember that girl. She was smart and she was engaged in her community. And then I ended up getting the opportunity to be on the commission. So.
What tips do you have for young lawyers who are interested in seeking an appointment?
I think one, go for it. Just express interest to whatever body, whether that's your local governor's office, or if you're in an even more local level, the mayor of your city. I think that a lot of us sometimes we discount like how much people really do want young people and lawyers to be engaged kind of civically. So there's always an opportunity, whether that's calling up your local city office to see if they have any boards or commissions that have openings, or looking on the internet, or whether or not it's serving with a local nonprofit. There's always opportunities to do all these things, but you just have to know where to look. And even if it's simple as like asking another lawyer who's really involved, like, hey, where are some places where there's a need? So I will tell you one thing about unfortunately, I think this is not an unfortunate thing, but for people like me who are pretty civically engaged, people always want you to be more engaged. So you always know of opportunities you can share with friends to say, oh, I know they're looking for a board member, or I know they're looking for somebody to help here. So don't discount like, your circle of friends and your mentors, and asking, where that you can be plugged in through some of the things they know.
Was your firm supportive of you getting an appointment?
They actually were pretty supportive. Well, one, I didn't know anything about it. So I get this call and they're like, hey, you want to do this? And then next, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So I Google it. I'm like, okay, this is cool. So I went to the partner that I primarily worked for at the time, and he actually had a friend who had just rolled off the commission. So he was like, hey, call her. She's great. I'm sure she'll be, really cool. And so I called her and was like, hey, apparently you did this. Tell me about your experience. And I talked to a couple other people, and they'd done it before, and they never had a bad experience. He said it was wonderful. They felt like they contributed. And so I just told my boss, and he was like, well, if the governor calls, you can't really say no. And we support you in that. And I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna be out of the office one day a month. Then I got to have a couple hours to prepare before. And so they were really supportive of it. And I'm really grateful for that.
Along those lines, how do you balance your work, your paid job responsibilities with the appointment as well?
Well, for me, I think I fall into the pitfall of any regularly ambitious young lawyer is when you first start in your career, when people ask you to do things, you just always say yes. You're like, oh, yes, you want me to paint this? Yes. You want me to buy ice cream? Yeah. Like you're just a yes person. I think it's just kind of by nature. But I think the more I progress in my career, I recognize that I need to pick yeses that are important and valuable to me. So like, having the opportunity to be on the ethics commission and whatever visibility that'll provide to me as a professional, as well as like, this is a little bit different. This is not like, you don't have to be a lawyer to be a commissioner. It's a kind of a different lane. So the opportunity to be in another lane was really attractive to me. So, and luckily at that point in my career, I kind of decided like, these are the things that are important to me. Like, it's really important for me to do my work as in the Young Lawyers Division of the bar. Like that's valuable to me. At the time I was also serving on the board of the Special Olympics in South Carolina. So I'm like, that's important to me. So I was like, okay, these are really important things to me. Aside from my practice, what I can add this one extra thing. So it's kind of good because I've kind of got it kind of narrowed down to like the things I'm willing to spend my time on, because it's pretty time consuming. So, and I want to have a life. I want to hang out with my friends. I want to like go to brunch on Saturday. So it's a really balance. But I think if you pick things that are important, they don't feel like work. Like when I go spend the whole day and drive off somewhere to go to the Special Olympics board meeting, I'm like, this is great. Whatever you guys want me to do. I don't feel like I shouldn't have signed up, or I overcommitted. I don't feel that way.
It doesn't feel like a burden.
Exactly. Like you just make it work. So that would be my tips on that.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
All that you do.
Thank you for having me.